All right, well, let's get started here today. Thank you all for joining us for our webinar today. Chris-Leef is very excited to be able to bring this opportunity. We know that in the last year, there have been some dramatic changes in our personal lines markets, especially in our homeowners risk space. And we're seeing some carriers that have been exiting the homeowners space or a dramatic shifting away from their offerings altogether. So today, we here at Chris-Leef wanted to present a short webinar about navigating the changing homeowners markets and then share for you some more information about the options that we have available. My name is Megan Prendergast, and I am going to be the person presenting to you today. I am the marketing manager here at Chris-Leef, and I've been with the company for about 5.5 years. I work closely with our underwriting teams to bring all of the educational pieces and more information about our offerings and carriers and markets that we have, along with the other members of our marketing team. I appreciate you all joining us today, and I do want to say we'd love to hear feedback that you have after the webinar, and in particularly, if there are any other products or markets that you'd like to see a similar webinar about in the future, you can send that information to me. My email's there on the screen for you, or you can drop it in the chat and we will look at that as well. As I mentioned a couple of times, but we have had a few more people come in, your cameras and your mics aren't going to be available for the webinar today, but if you do have any questions or comments, anything that you'd like to share with us, please do go ahead and utilize that chat function. It is at the top bar there for you, and we have some staffers that are going to be here today to answer questions for you as we move through our webinar. Now, I would like to introduce you to our personal lines underwriting team. Marcia Peck is our underwriter for Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Southwest Missouri, and she works with our assistant underwriter for that area, Tammy Locke. Sarah Delvine serves as the underwriter for Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and our Northern Missouri agents, and she works with associate underwriter for that area, Rachel Marley. All of them work together with the manager for our personal lines team, David Sell. These folks that you see on your screen here, they are the experts in this area and are your very best source for any carrier or risk-specific questions that you might have. Today, these four folks are going to be answering any questions that you might have via the chat, but also feel free to reach out to anyone at Chris-Leef via email or phone. We answer our phones here, or phone with questions that you might have after we wrap up our webinar today. Let's look at our agenda. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, today we're going to be going over some general information on our different homeowners carriers. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into their appetites and coverage guidelines. And then we're going to talk through the upcoming updates and changes that have been announced by American Modern. They're obviously one of the big carriers who's making some changes, prompting us to want to share with you what other options Chris-Leef has available to you. And then we're going to wrap up by showing you how to get a quote for your homeowners risks with our team, as well as including some important highlights on our homeowners applications that are going to be needed to give you the fastest possible turnaround time and get you the kind of quotes that you guys are looking for. So let's get started by jumping into the first carrier that we're going to talk about today. So our first carrier here is going to be our in-house contract with Bell & Clements through Lloyd's. Because this is an in-house contract, these are the risks that are going to live within our in-house binding authority. Here a little bit later, we'll talk about the things that we can submit over to Bell & Clements that live outside of our in-house authority. But right now, this is going to be in-house. And what's great about the carriers that we do have that in-house authority with, those are risks that we can usually turn around just a little bit faster if they don't need to be submitted over to the carrier for approval. We can do it all through our underwriting team here. The states that we have in-house authority with Bell & Clements on would be Arkansas, Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. Almost all of the core states that Chris-Leef works in. I do just want to highlight there that Iowa is not one of those options, but don't worry, we have other options for your risks that are in Iowa. Our coverage types with this contract are going to be HO3, HO4, HO6, and HO8. The limits for this contract, we're going to have a TIV of up to $2 million for our in-house contract. And in Colorado, we're going to have a TIV up to $2 million unless it is in a very high wildfire score area. And then the TIV is going to be up to $1 million for us there. With our update requirements, we are looking for full updates within 35 years. We did just get that bumped from 30 years to 35 years. So if you've seen that change a little bit, that would be why we did just make that request and we're able to get that bumped. And then a roof update within 25 years. If your updates are outside of that and they're within 50 years, we are able to look at that and can potentially offer an HO8 on an ACV basis for you. Inspections, and I know that this is probably a little different than some of the carriers that some of you might be more acquainted with. Inspections for this contract are going to be both interior and exterior inspections within 30 days of binding. Our team will work with the inspection teams for you, and we are going to be able to help schedule those so that your insured knows who's coming out, when they're coming out, and that it is actually someone to do the inspection for their homeowner's policy. But it is something you might want to mention up front if you're getting a quote back from these carriers, that it's going to be a little different potentially than what they've experienced before. Our turnaround time for these kinds of quotes is going to be around 3 to 4 business days unless we have to submit over for carrier approval. That might give us a little bit of a longer one, but our team has been doing a very good job of living within that 3 to 4 day turnaround time to get that back to you. And then information on losses. We're able to look at some risks that have losses. The only thing is that if there are 3 or more losses, total losses over 100K, or any open claims, we can still look at those. We do just have to submit those over to the carrier to get looked at, which might add a day to that turnaround for you. And then just some additional information about this particular carrier. We've seen some competitive premiums, especially in Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. It's really exciting that with this carrier compared to American Modern or some of the others you might be used to, that we do have the ability to make some exclusions, and your commission rates here are going to be the commission rates that you see as part of the contracted rate that you have with Chris-Leef. If you do have questions about what that rate is, please feel free to reach out to myself or your marketing rep. We'd be very happy to talk through what the commission looks like for you and your agency. Next, let's talk about our Scottsdale contract, which is also an in-house contract for us, where we have in-house authority. The states that we can write with Scottsdale are going to be all of our core states: Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. We can also look at risks in states outside of those. Those are just where we tend to write the majority of our risks. So if you do have it, truly, if you'd like to have our team look at anything, we'd be very happy to look at things for you. If you're not seeing it in these specific carrier guidelines, we can always look at those and see if there's potential with those. And if it's not something we can do, we will give you that answer of, unfortunately, that doesn't live where we currently live, as quickly as we can, so that it's not just being sat on there for you. For our coverage types here, we have HO3, HO4, HO6, and HO8 again. The limits with Scottsdale are going to be higher than you saw with Bell and Clements here. We can do a TIV of up to $8 million, and they do have some reinsurance options with a limit of $50 million. If you've got a $50 million house that you're looking to try and bring over, Chris-Leef might be a great home for it. We'll definitely take a look. The update requirements here: wiring and heating within 50 years, water within 40 years, and the roof updated within 25 years. I do want to say, if the water or the roofing is over what you're seeing there on the screen, we can look at offering some exclusions there for you. And with the wiring and heating in particular, we can be flexible with that depending on the inspection report that does come back to us. So again, let us take a look at what's happening there. For our turnaround time, we're looking at 3 business days unless carrier approval is needed. I do want to say that our underwriter with this carrier is very fast, very responsive, very attentive to our team. We have a great relationship with them, so we do see a pretty quick turnaround if we do need to send something over to the carrier. As far as losses go, the only thing that's going to kick something out here is if there are any open claims. Anything that's closed, we can take a look at, even if there are multiples. And then just some additional information. We have seen some competitive rates from Scottsdale, but they are pickier about wildfire score. Anything that is 85 or higher tends to be something that we do need to send over to the carrier and that they might not be able to do. And we also want to make you aware that with Arkansas and Oklahoma, any risks that are coming from those states, we do need to submit over to the carrier. But again, our underwriter at this carrier is very fast and very attentive to our team, so it doesn't add too much time on when we need to do that. Also for Oklahoma, any risks that are going to be submitted are going to require a wildfire score. We're able to offer some exclusions, as I mentioned, and they're also able to have some flexibility with the deductibles that are offered. So if you know that you have some specificity there where you're looking for some exclusions or higher deductibles, do let our team know when you email in a submission so that we can make sure that we're including that when we send those things over. Our commission rates on these are also going to be what is your contracted rate with Chris-Leef. Next, we're going to look at our Bell and Clements through Lloyd's contract for everything that lives outside of our in-house binding authority, what we here call the open market. Our states, again, are going to be all of our core states there. You're going to see Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. But again, anything that lives outside of those states, we can take a look at for sure. That's just where we're writing the majority. Our coverage types here are going to be a little different. You're going to see it's an HO3, HO5, and HO6. And there's going to be a dwelling limit of 500K or more that's going to need to be on these particular policies. That encompasses basically everything that we see that's coming into Chris-Leef here, but we want to make you aware of it. For our limits here, we're looking at a TIV of up to 10 million. So that's where some things that are a little higher than the 2 million for our in-house, we can come over here to our open market. Update requirements, all updates on this are going to need to be within 30 years, and a central station alarm typically is going to need to be required. That is different than you're going to see with our other carriers here, so I want to make sure that I highlight that for you. For inspections, same as normal, you're going to see interior and exterior inspections within 30 days of binding. And I do want to mention for all of these contracts with that, as the policies come up for renewal, every 3 years, you're going to see that there's going to be a need for inspections to happen again, both interior and exterior. Turnaround times on this risk are just a little bit longer at about 4 to 5 business days because, again, all of these get submitted over to our carrier. As far as what we're able to look at from a loss standpoint is just no open property claims. Everything else we're definitely able to take a look at. And the additional information for this particular carrier contract, the commission rate over to our agents is going to be 8%, and that's going to include a little bit of an additional fee to the insured. And it's important to note that they use an internal wildfire score rating system that is going to come with a $20 fee. So just be aware of that as well. All right, and our last carrier that we're going to look at here today is our Berkshire Hathaway carrier, which you'll sometimes see on your policy documents listed as home state. And on the states that we're able to write this, you're going to see, again, all of our core states here, but we'll look at things outside of that group. And what is important to note here for coverage types is that with this particular contract, we are able to look at secondary and short-term rental properties. So no owner occupied is offered on this particular contract. Limits here, we're looking at a TIV of up to $10 million. And that is going to include protection classes 9 and 10. So for those of you who see some more rural things that come through your doors, we are able to look at those 9 and 10 protection classes on this particular contract. Update requirements. This is different here. There's no specified update requirements. It's all going to be rate dependent. So depending on when you last had those updates, your rate is going to change for that. With our inspections, this is also different. There are no inspections required, either internal or external, only photos which can be taken by the insured themselves and submitted. Our turnaround time here, since all of the risks must be submitted over to the carrier, is going to look at around 4 to 5 days. And as far as the losses go, we can take a look at everything. They are very open to looking to see what the losses might be and working around and seeing what they can do with that. Obviously, rates might change depending on losses and things, but we'll take a look at anything, even if there are open claims. Some additional info on this one here, we have that they use their internal wildfire score rating system. They do have competitive premiums, but these policies are not going to include liability. Luckily, we can write the liability on a separate form through USLI, and we want to make sure that you're aware that any other structures are going to be scheduled separately. While we're on this page and we're talking about USLI, I do want to make you aware we're not going super in-depth on USLI's residential products in this particular webinar, but we are looking to do another webinar with USLI directly to talk through what those products are. One of the big differences with USLI here is that anything residential is going to still be written on commercial paper, even though it would normally live in a world of personal lines. So it's just something we like to make people aware of if you do start to see those or use those. USLI is of all of the contracts we've talked about today, is an online quoting platform that is available, and we'll talk about that here just a little bit later. But again, we'll go more in depth on that in another webinar, and when we have that webinar scheduled to come up, we'll make sure to invite all of you as well. All right, next let's talk about American Modern and the updates and changes that they've announced so far. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware, as there was a little bit of change that came from American Modern from the first announcement to what we have now, and these are all of the information that we have up to date. So as most of you have probably heard, American Modern is going to be pausing their new business for homeowners. It is not going to affect renewals at this time. They're not going to be non-renewals. They're just going to be pausing new business for homeowners. For Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska, that pause is going to go into effect on March 1st. In Colorado, it's going to go into effect on April 1st. And in Oklahoma, what we've been told is that there is a tentative date, but that it is imminent. So we want to make you guys aware of those specific dates. But again, renewals are going to remain open. Arkansas has been paused for a while and will continue to be paused. The other thing that is new that you might not have seen yet that we want to make sure that everyone is aware of is that American Modern is going to be pausing new agency setups under all MGAs, including Chris-Leef, for quoting residential products in both Colorado and Nebraska starting on March 1st. Now, if your agency is already set up and you're just wanting to add some new users to your login to American Modern's platform, that is something that they'll be able to do regardless. But in Colorado and Nebraska, any new agency setups are going to be paused on March 1st. At the end of our webinar here, I'm going to give you a QR code and a link, as well as it being emailed out to you at the end for any agents that are in that Colorado and Nebraska area where you would like to get set up before that pause goes into effect. We will make sure that we get that done here in the next few days as we wrap up February and head into March for you, so that you won't be affected by that if you would like. And then the other thing I do want to mention is that their other products are remaining open. Their dwelling for both basic and special, as well as their recreational vehicles and everything you see listed there. All of those do remain open for both renewals and new business. So how is American Modern different than the other carriers that we've discussed today? Well, first, and something that I think that is really important, is that credit is not going to be factored when quoting with our other carriers in the way that it has been with American Modern. We're also able to offer exclusions with these contracts, and some higher deductibles are going to be made available through some of them as well. So there's some more flexibility than you would see through American Modern. We're also able to look at risks that have multiple losses. And when our team was doing some looking around at American Modern policies that we quoted last year versus them coming up this year, we were finding that some of the premiums were not only competitive, but were under American Modern when we were quoting those same risks with our other carriers. So we do have some competitive things to offer here. I do want to point out that if an exclusion is needed or a higher deductible is desired, when you're submitting your application over to our team, which we'll talk through here in just a second, you can indicate that in the email body that you're looking for those options. And that's going to help our team to kind of know which of our carriers they want to go to and approach first based off of which ones are more likely to be able to have those possibilities. So anything that you are specifically looking for that way, let our team know, and we're really happy to look at that and work with you. Also, we're going to be able to offer you a 5% wind hail deductible that's being offered on a percentage rather than just a dollar amount. We do have that ability. Now, some of the things that aren't as lovely, all of the carriers we discussed today, we do not currently have direct bill or mortgagee pay options. However, we can offer financing through IPFS on premiums over $500, and they do have an auto pay function that can be set up that kind of helps to fill in that gap when it comes to direct bill. The other thing is we do not have online quoting platforms for the carriers that were listed except for USLI, which is available, yet. I will say that we know that direct bill and online quoting platforms are very familiar and have been the norm for quoting homeowners risks, and that convenience factor being eliminated is going to be a change for you as agents and also for your insureds. So we are working with our IT department to try and fill in that gap as much as we can, and we're hoping to have something about that to announce to you guys soon. All right, let's look at how to get a quote while we have a few minutes left. Very important here. So since we don't have the online quoting platforms, how do you get a quote? Well, you're going to fill out a homeowner's application for us, and then, which you can access through our agent portal, which is called The Grove, or we're going to email it out to you after this webinar for you to have. And then you're going to go ahead and email that into our team at the email you see listed here, submissions@chris-leef.com. As a reminder, if you were looking for either, I know everyone's looking for both, but either fastest possible turnaround time or lowest possible premium, let our team know in the body of the email so that we can look at what we need to approach when it comes to the markets. Really quickly, we're going to go over some areas of our homeowners application that must be filled out to be able to provide you a quote and keep those turnaround times as fast as possible and what we quoted here earlier in the webinar. So very quickly, just want to go over what is needed besides obviously your information as an agent and the applicant's general information. We do need the coverage section filled out entirely. If there is a specific coverage that is not desired, go ahead and throw a 0 in there. We need something in all of these boxes in the coverage because not all of our carriers are able to offer percentages on these coverages the way you might be used to. So please make sure that that is filled out in its entirety. In the rating and underwriting section, we also need this complete, and I've highlighted the areas in particular that we must have to get a quote. Year built, purchase date, square feet, the protection class, if you know it, would be very helpful. Construction type, usage type, and occupancy. We absolutely must have that to get a quote. We've got 2 more quick slides on this and then we'll wrap ourselves up here. The update section is next. Please be sure that in addition to telling us the year that an update happened, tell us whether or not it was a partial or a complete update, which you can indicate by putting an X in the appropriate box there. And then we do need all all of the details that are listed here, most of which are yes or no questions for you. We are looking for that loss history the same way that everyone is for the last 3 years, and that is the last consecutive 3 years, not starting at 2019, but the last years that are available, and whether or not any losses are open or closed. Please make sure to indicate that. And then also a prior/current coverage, being sure that if there has been a lapse or no prior coverage, that you do let us know why in an explanation. The other thing with loss history that I think is very important here is that if there has been a large fire loss, we are going to need the fire marshal's reports to go ahead and go over with the submission to get that quoted back to you. And then really quickly, the last section that we would love to see filled out is the general information section. It's 21 yes or no questions for you. And if you submit over without these questions filled out and you decide to go ahead and bind, we're going to need these questions anyway before we're going to be able to get that bound for you. So we do suggest that you go ahead and just get those answered for us up top. All right, very quickly as we wrap up here, I want to point out that if you would like access to our agent portal, The Grove, which is where you can find not only our homeowners application, which is a fillable PDF you can type right into, but all of our online applications, you can request your access to that here. This is also where you can go ahead and request access to any of our online raters, including American Modern Wallet remains open. I'll send this out to everybody afterwards. You're going to see all of the other benefits of our agent portal listed for you there as well. Our marketing team, we have a bunch of wonderful sales and marketing rep experts. Ryan Watts, who serves Colorado, Kevin Conway, the man, the myth, the legend, who has been in Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri marketing rep, and then Tyler Witcher, who handles Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Southwest Missouri. Do feel free to reach out to them for any marketing or market questions that you might have. You're also going to be able, if you have the desire, to see our entire appetite list and marketing packet via this QR code, and we'll get this out to you afterwards as well. This is going to include everything we write in our commercial lines, professional lines, commercial auto and garage departments, and it's going to show you the other products that are offered by our personal lines department, including a new ag product, which we're excited to send some more information out to you guys about soon. So do take a look through that to see all the ways Chris-Leef is here to help and support you in your growth. All right, I want to thank everyone so much for taking the time today, and I really want to thank our personal lines underwriting team for being in the chat and answering those questions for us. We're going to go ahead and stay on the webinar for a few more minutes to answer any last questions that are going to pop up in the chat, but please be looking for our follow-up email. It's going to have slides of all the information shared here, as well as links to our homeowners application and the requests if you'd like to get into our agent portal, The Grove, and utilize that. We think it's a great platform. It's very helpful for our agents to be able to get in there and see all that we can do for them that way. So we're going to go ahead and stay here for a few minutes, but please be looking for that follow-up email. And I just want to let everyone know that our team really does strive to remain as a constant for your homeowners risks, even in this shifting market. So please let us know if there is anything that we can do to help you. And again, feel free to drop any webinar suggestions. If you'd like to see a webinar similar to this about any other offerings or products that we do have, go ahead and drop those suggestions in the chat or email them over to me after our webinar today. We really appreciate you guys taking the time, and have a good day.